Hey there, welcome back to the channel. My name is Ian, known as WanderBeard around these parts. In today's video, I'm finally going to answer some long requested questions. I had a post up about 3 weeks ago or so and asked people to submit some questions to me to be answered. And so here I am today. It's very hot. I am not in Canada anymore, obviously. And I thought I would take this time to finally sit down and answer those questions. And I also found a few other questions in some of my other videos and things that come up quite often, and I thought that maybe I would answer those also. I also wanted to take a moment to say thank you very much for the 30,000 subscribers. When I started 2025, I had about 3,700 subscribers, more or less. And this year, I was able to travel Mexico, Belize, Guatemala, El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, and parts of Costa Rica. And, you know, seeing that grow by almost 10 times has been remarkable to me. I've been completely shocked that people have been enjoying my content and my outlook on life, I guess. I got a lot of nice comments from people saying that, you know, they really like my style of videos and things. And that means a lot to me because I don't try and be flashy or controversial or, you know, any of those sorts of things. This is just who I am. These are the places that I visited and these are my experiences. And I don't, you know, polish it up. I don't sugarcoat it. I don't go looking for trouble just to make, you know, this place is the most dangerous place in the world type stuff. Even my video when I was in San Pedro Sula, and you know, I had a sort of, I guess, clickbaity title of sorts with, you know, being the former murder capital of the world, but that's just a fact. I mean, that's what it was. And so it was interesting to go and explore that and see that, you know, that's not necessarily the case anymore. So anyway, without further ado, let's get into the questions, because that's why everybody's here, not to hear me ramble endlessly. So I just took the questions and put them on my phone here. I've got who sent them to me, the questions, and these answers are just going to be kind of off the hip, as they say. There's no real structure to the answers. I'm just going to kind of give you my honest opinions as I sit here, which is, I hope, what everybody is looking for. So first question I have is from Brian Ripdog, and his question was, how to be unshakable. Face other cultures from other countries out of comfort zone situations and new challenges and difficulties, and still maintain your principles. So I guess my kind of outlook on some of this stuff is that I always assume, and I've totally stolen this idea basically from Anthony Bourdain, who was one of my favorite people to have ever existed. He was so smart, so, you know, entertaining, and very much had a I don't care about what anybody thinks kind of attitude. But one of the things he said years ago that stuck with me, and I'm paraphrasing because I don't remember the exact quote, but basically, always assume you are the stupidest person in the room or wherever you are. Don't ever think that you know more than the locals do. Don't ever think that you are able to interject into a conversation and give people your peace of mind without, you know, getting to know people. I think the mistake a lot of people make is that when they go somewhere, they make assumptions about the people or the culture, or they make assumptions about politics or religion or whatever. And that always sets a bad precedent. What ends up happening, of course, is that, you know, immediately everyone goes on the defensive. People don't necessarily want to have those kind of conversations, especially if they don't know you from anybody. And it just can make things much more difficult. And so what I try and do is have an open mind, try not to be judgmental, try not to assume that my way is better than somebody else's. Just because I was brought up in one culture, you know, I'm from Canada, we have a pretty good life in Canada, to be honest. You know, things were pretty good. And I know that I was also very fortunate with that. Lots of places certainly do not have the same kind of comforts or style of life that people assume. And so I see that a lot. And it's not just in younger travelers. I think it's, I will say, inexperienced travelers. So people who are going somewhere for the first time, or, maybe they've gone to resorts in the past, but now they're going to go somewhere that's off resort for their first time in their life, or, go explore a new country or a new culture or something. And immediately they get stuck with this idea of culture shock. And I think a lot of that just comes back to, well, I assumed that my way was the right way and that this can't be how it is, and this is just all very confusing. So just turn that around and say, well, everybody's here, everybody does their things, everybody does their things in different ways. Let's just see how it goes. And I think that that's a big part of that. The other side of that, of course, is that, you come into challenges or risks and those types of things. You have to be risk aware all the time. That doesn't matter if you are, I'm just grabbing some water because it's hot. That doesn't matter if you are in a war zone. It doesn't matter if you're in the most peaceful country in the world. It doesn't matter if it's somewhere you've been 1,000 times before. You always have to be aware that there's a risk that something could happen. And so I think that that's also part of it. And that doesn't mean putting up a guard in front of everybody and, not being sociable and not talking to people and all those different things. That doesn't mean that at all. Quite the opposite. I think that you just have to be situationally aware that you're walking down a street and it's the middle of the night and it's a city you've never been to and you don't know where you're going, and et cetera, et cetera. You're putting yourself at risk. And I say that as someone who's from Halifax, Nova Scotia in Canada. It's the same as there as it would be anywhere else. If you're not familiar with the area and you're there at the wrong time of day or night, you're risking problems. So I hope that kind of answers that two-part question a little bit. There's more to it, obviously, but for me, that's kind of how I've always approached things, and that seems to have always worked out pretty well. Because I certainly have never gotten into a situation where I was like, I need to get out of here now. I always kind of have an idea of what I want to do, where I want to go, and it has worked out pretty well. Second question from Dark XXO. Do you plan to visit Iceland? Do you love traveling solo, or does it get lonely? Love your videos. Well, first of all, thank you very much. Second of all, I'll just answer this kind of a, do you plan on visiting X instead of a particular country? And the answer to that is yes, I would love to go everywhere. I mean, the whole world is out there to see, and there's so many interesting places and people and cultures and all that sort of stuff that there's really very few places that I would consider to be off limits. And someone's going to ask, well, what are those places? I would say places that are in the middle of, pretty heavy duty conflict. So the one example I'll think of the top of my head right now is that, it's 2025 and Haiti would be a no-go zone just because of the level of violence and danger that's there right now. I've seen other videos from some great YouTubers who have gone to Haiti, and even they've had very difficult times there. Lots of security, lots of no-go zones, lots of problems, and putting all that together would be a tremendous amount of work. And I just travel myself, and I go to places that I like, and there's lots of places around the world that I would love to see. Have I loved traveling solo, or does it get lonely? Well, it doesn't get lonely. The old adage is that it's always nice to be able to share that sunset with somebody else, and all that sort of thing. I started this out completely solo. I had no plans to meet or travel with someone else or any of those sorts of things. And I've been very, clear about that in the past. This was for me, this was an opportunity for me to go out and do things that I wanted to do and see places that I wanted to see. But over time, I have also softened my stance a little bit to say that, well, it doesn't have to be just by myself, or it just doesn't have to be so that it becomes more of a fault than a positive. Traveling solo just to travel solo and be stubborn about it is stupid. If you come along the way and you meet somebody, or you want to meet some friends, or a partner or whatever, that's okay too. There's nothing wrong with that. And so just keep an open mind. If something comes along and it, you know, changes your whole perspective on things and really kind of rewrites your vision of your own future, that's okay too. Just make sure it fits into what your plans are or what you want them to be, and everything's going to be just fine. Carolina Cadabra asks, how long do you plan to continue traveling once you reach Panama? Where next? Well, as you've seen from my last video and this one, I took a pause from continuing south through Costa Rica into Panama. I felt that I just needed a break at the time, so I, went and took some time off, went home to visit my parents and my friends and family, and that was a really nice time. I had a really great recharge there, just taking the time to relax, which was great. Um, I would, I would love to always continue to travel. Traveling is in my blood. It's been in my blood since I was pretty young. I sort of, I took an opportunity back in, and I'll keep this short. I took an opportunity back in 1998 to go to Peru with CARE International. It's an NGO. And I worked with them for, about 5 months. It was almost 6 months in total because I did some prep time in Ottawa in Canada first, and then Peru for about 5 months. And it was awesome. And it totally changed my perspective on life, on everything. Can't recommend it enough. If you get an opportunity to go overseas to work with an NGO or something like that, to do it, because it really does set your life into a whole different direction for the better. And it's such a great experience. So yeah, I would like to just continue traveling. Maybe not non-stop like I have been in the past. 18 months straight was a long time to be traveling on the road. But it was great, and I loved it, and I'm sure there'll be many more adventures to come. This is a question I've been waiting to answer from Tejano Traveler. How would you rate toilet papers across North America so far? Is there a ranked order? So yes, I would say that the ranked order is the roll that I keep in my backpack. That's always number one. I have kept a roll in my backpack while I travel, because oftentimes you'll get to a public bathroom or on a bus or something like that, and there'll be no toilet paper in the bathrooms. And so, apart from your own underwear and a couple of T-shirts, toilet paper should be number 3 on your list for your backpack. It's not really a ranked order, I guess, per country. Some places have been better than others. Some places have had some, and some others not at all. So there's not really a ranked order in terms of countries. But I will definitely say that I've had some pretty rough experiences with some of the toilet papers that I've experienced. Pat24490. Out of all the places you visited, which one did you think was the most livable and appealing to live long term in terms of costs, way of life, job prospects, and general peace? That is a very difficult question to answer, because I don't know if there's anywhere that would have that perfect combination of all of those things. So really what you need to do, I think, is prioritize what's important to you. So if you're looking for a cheap place to live relative to what you're paying now, then there are certainly lots of countries for that. But you have to remember that locals don't have the same income level and don't have the same savings necessarily or job prospects necessarily, so that 50-cent taco that you come across in Mexico, which seems like a fantastic deal to you, is still a good deal, but for locals is that's not necessarily just as cheap. When you're in other countries where the minimum wage is $1.50 an hour or $2 an hour, or in some cases no minimum wage, the price of the cost of living has certainly increased there to locals just as much as it has anywhere else. So it's advantageous to you to go somewhere cheaper if you have some savings or you have a good job and you want to work remotely. But just be aware that you're also affecting the local people and their way of life and their cost of living also. The more expats that move into a place, the more digital nomads or whatever that move into a place and stay there, the higher the costs become for everybody else. Lots of places it's happening, and we see that everywhere. So I actually had to change my camera angle a little bit because for the first time ever, my DJI action camera has overheated because it is hot, as you can probably see. So it'll be a bit more in the shade here. I tried to angle myself so that the camera's in the shade and I'm kind of in the sun, but we'll see how this goes. Anyway, yeah, so I would say that's the most important thing, is that you need to make a list of the things that are important to you, be it cost of living, be it job prospects, be it general peace, way of life. Prioritize those and then make a decision, because I don't think you're going to find a place that has all of those things that you need all at the same time. Adriana Zarate, are you planning to return to Canada and pass through northern Mexico? Are you still planning to visit Nuevo León, Tamaulipas, and Saltillo? Well, I did return to Canada, but I flew home rather than going overland. Obviously, that would take far too long. I would love to get to see more of the northern part of Mexico. When I came through Mexico last year, I came down Baja California, crossed over into Mazatlan, and continued south from there. So obviously there's a large swath of Mexico that I didn't get to see. So I hope I would get to see that again in the future. Besor Gulayan, I think is how you pronounce it. I saw your video recently and want to do what you're currently doing. I don't want to appear like creating excuses, and I don't like complaining, but currently I have many troubles and problems, and it seems like they are preventing my dreams. I want to see the world while my life is streaming like a drying river. What do you suggest to me? Well, I would say the first thing to do is, if you want to go do something, whatever it is, if it's traveling, if it's a new hobby, if it's learning how to cook, just start. Make a plan, figure out what you need to do to get there, and do it. I think a lot of people make the plan and come up with lots of ideas, and they write down the whole structure and say, okay, I'm going to do all this and it's going to be great, but then they don't follow through on it. And so that just ends up causing more issues. So one of the things I would really recommend is make a plan, start small, start with a small project. Like we'll use travel as the example because that's why we're all here. If you want to travel, make a plan for a weekend vacation or a day trip, and then build from that. So then you do a weekend trip second, or a week-long trip second, or then you get on a plane the next time and you go somewhere new, and kind of build up to it. I don't want anybody to think for a second that when I took off on the train from Halifax in mid-2024 that was the first time I've been anywhere. I've been to about a half a dozen countries by that point. I had lived in Japan for a while. I had lived in Peru, as I mentioned earlier, and I had visited some other countries. So I had a little bit of experience already, and I think that little bit of experience can go a long way. But in the end of the day, if you have dreams that you want to see through and make happen, then come up with a plan and stick to it. And the sticking to it part is always most difficult, because it's so easy to say, oh, I'll wait till tomorrow, or oh, maybe not this week, maybe I'll do more planning next week. Come up with the plan and stick to it. And if it's truly something you want to do, then it's truly the plan that you will want to execute every day until you get there. G. Posner. Hello, Ian. My question pertains to researching the countries you visit. Which resources do you rely upon? Guidebooks, Google/YouTube? How far in advance do you make hotel, Airbnb, hostel reservations? Thanks so much. Big fan. Safe travels. Thank you very much. So two parts of this question. The first one is doing research. So my research plans are basically, I look up a country before I get there, and I start marking things on a map. And I pick out, I might want to go to these ruins, or I want to go to this museum, or I want to go to this town, or whatever. And I just kind of plot those all out on a Google map. And I just kind of, put all that together. And then when I feel like I've gotten to a good point of structure, I then say, okay, well, how does this look as a route? And then I'll try and route it in the most efficient way possible, which isn't always easy because some countries require you to kind of zigzag a little bit. But generally speaking, I'm able to kind of create a pretty smooth one-way route through countries based on those plotted points. And really when I start looking for suggestions, so let's say I look up a museum, I'll then do more research specifically on that museum, which usually often takes me to blogs or reviews or those types of things, or people have recommendations of things to see within the museum, or restaurants that are nearby and those kinds of things. And so I'll just keep a running sheet of all these little things and compile it all so that when I get there, I am pretty well ready to go. Now, I've certainly made adjustments on the fly. Sometimes I've decided to add locations or remove locations, just either from couldn't find a place to stay that was within my budget, couldn't find a bus that goes somewhere to there. In terms of booking in advance, I was very rarely did I book out more than 2 days in advance. I was on the road consecutively for quite a while, and so that's including high seasons, low seasons, whatever. And I never had an issue finding a place, any of my stops, that was within my budget. I get a kick out of the people who comment on my 51st birthday video, which has been life-changing for me. People say, "Oh, where'd you find a place for $15 a night?" And my answer to that is lots of places. If you've seen my most recent video on hotel tips and tricks, you'll see that those types of prices are very attainable in lots of countries. No, you will not find something for $15 a night anywhere in the US or Canada, unless you're really lucky or something. But generally speaking, you will not find that price there. You will also not find that price in parts of Mexico. So in Baja, for example, it was a bit more expensive because the infrastructure wasn't as developed. There wasn't as many hotels available, so there is a slight uptick in demand, I would say, for those fewer rooms. But generally speaking, it was still easy enough for me to, figure something out and find a place that was reasonable. And then once I got beyond there, the prices plummeted very quickly. El Salvador, Honduras, Nicaragua, even the places I found in Costa Rica were all, $15 a night, $20 a night. I shot that video, a 51st birthday video. I shot that in Playa del Carmen, 3 blocks from the beach, in a room that had a little kitchenette, private bathroom, air conditioning, comfortable bed, the whole bit. And it was like $15 US a night, I think is roughly what it worked out to. So really a couple days in advance, and shouldn't have any trouble finding places. And I use a variety of sites. Again, I won't go through all of that again because there's another video which I'll put a link to here on the screen. But there's lots of opportunity for that. Maleficent Mamita, she had a 2-part question. First part was, do you want to visit somewhere X? I already answered that. But the second part is, traveling alone kind of scary, or in what country seems like not safe to go or travel? So I think it's important to separate what you read and what you experience. I think that I had a lot of apprehension about going to Honduras before I got there. I think it was sort of a mistake on my part, I think, listening to too much news and doing too much research about the history of the country in the last 20 years, let's say. There was lots of warnings, lots of travel warnings and all this sort of stuff. And I traveled solo, freely through the entire country without any problems. That was using local transportation, that was traveling, from town to town on my own. It was great. It was fantastic. Copan and Utila and Lake Yohoa were all amazing. And even the big cities, San Pedro Sula and Tegucigalpa, were really nice. I didn't explore the full aspects of either of those cities. Primarily stuck to the kind of downtown areas and stuff, but it was really nice. And I think that really proceed with caution, but don't proceed with fear, I guess is a good way to put it. There's obviously certain countries that you don't go to. There are countries that are in the middle of terrible conflicts. You wouldn't go to Sudan right now, for example, or I mentioned Haiti earlier, or some countries like that. There's just too much risk involved. And for some people, that's fine. Some people are willing to accept more risk than others, and that's okay too. You got to go with what you're feeling comfortable about, because if you don't do that, you're not going to enjoy yourself. You're just going to be afraid the whole time. Not today, Bud asked me, have you ever been on a cruise? And if not, do you plan on going on to one? I'm not really a cruise guy. I have some friends who love cruises. I know my parents have been on a cruise. And it's actually funny, sitting here where I am, I see cruise ships come by here almost daily. And it's just not my thing. It's probably the same thing that cruise people wouldn't like to travel the way that I travel, overland on local buses and all that sort of thing. It's just a personal preference, really. But I've just never found them all that interesting. I've been on the other side of that, I guess. So when I was in Belize City, which was a big port stop for a lot of cruise ships, the cruise ships take you off, they load you onto these docks where it's all very touristy, lots of shops selling souvenirs or whatever. But then they just get you back on a boat and get you back on the cruise ship and off you go. And that's not, to me, that's not how you experience the country. I spent 3 days roughly in Belize City, exploring it by foot, going out to all the different parts of the town, and it was awesome. And I had a great time there, and that felt way more like visiting Belize than a cruise ship would. But again, it's just different for everybody. Some people, that's all they want, and that's cool too. And you just have to keep an open mind about it. Emir Hanuleo asked me, "How are you?" I'm good. Thank you for asking. Feeling pretty good, pretty relaxed. I mean, I'm hot at the moment because it's blazing hot outside here. But other than that, I'm good. And yeah, no complaints, really. Nothing to complain about here. It's hot and sunny, and life is good. Journeys of My Life says, "I wish my channel was as good as yours." Well, I said the same thing a year ago to a lot of other channels, that I wished my channel was as good as theirs. And really, it just comes down to practice, keeping consistent, and gaining that confidence and building new skills and those types of things. Like, I go back and look at my old videos now and I'm like, yeesh, a lot of those are pretty poor quality. There's lots of pauses and ums and ahs, and I still do a lot of that now, of course, but I think that it was more noticeable back then than it is today. And so really, it's just continuing to work on it, continuing to promote it however you feel comfortable, be it social media or whatever. The one thing I would recommend if you're working on trying to promote your site, though, is don't go out and fall for one of these buy subscribers or buy social media or any of that kind of stuff. That does not work. It may temporarily push up your subscriber numbers or your view numbers, but it can actually end up hindering you in the longer run, because what happens is once that campaign that you've purchased drops off, YouTube really notices that, oh, your traffic has dropped way off, your audience has dropped way off, so they're going to start not pushing your content as much. So keep that in mind, that in my opinion, it's always best to try and keep it as organic as possible, as real as possible, and yeah, just be honest. And I think as time progresses, you'll continue to attract a bigger audience, and skills will improve as you go. So I have a few more questions here that are from more recent comments on videos. And I just happened to pull these because, I just happened to scroll through a few and found these at the top of the list. Would you recommend a career in IT? I'm trying to get into it, but it seems impossible. So I worked in IT, as I've mentioned before, for about 25 years. I've worked for at least a half a dozen companies during that time. And I think that it's a great career, but you have to be very specific, and you also have to be very flexible, and you have to be willing to adjust as necessary. I think that you have to be willing to accept that things are going to change, that some parts of your job may not exist in a year or 6 months or 5 years from now, that things are changing very quickly, that there's a lot of automation that's coming in. So my recommendation to people trying to get into IT now is pick a specific area of IT, be it networking, security, those types of things, and focus on that and continue to learn on it. Being the old days of being a generalist and being a little bit good at everything doesn't work anymore. It's just not feasible. There's just too much going on. There's too many changes happening, and there's too many different areas within IT now to try and stay on top of all of them. So if you're looking to get into IT stuff, cybersecurity obviously is a huge one. I think that as this automation and, well, I put AI, I'll put that in quotation marks because it's not really AI, it's just a bunch of large language models that are answering questions with hopefully correct answers. But as all that stuff grows, the number of risks and challenges and threats continue to increase. So it's good to stay on top of that stuff. There's always going to be careers in cybersecurity, for sure. So that's a big one. Hope that makes sense. I just stumbled across your channel. This is from Phil C. I just stumbled across your channel. I was going to ask, what's your philosophy on life? Are you a Bitcoiner? No, I'm not. I've been to Bitcoin Beach in El Salvador, but I am not a Bitcoiner per se. I have dabbled in it a few times over the years, and I never had any luck with it. I did what probably 95% of people do with it. They buy it for a little while, and then they sell it. And then, of course, the price explodes later on, and you live your rest of your life in regret about not having any. I had some original Bitcoin that I had mined back in I don't know, 2012 maybe, 2011. Lost that. That was like 50 Bitcoin. That's just gone, poof. I had purchased some Bitcoin back in 2016, 2017, and that went poof through just, I think I just ended up selling it off for like a few months later for a few extra dollars. And then, yeah, so just really like I've dabbled in it a little bit, but I've never been that into it. I think a lot of the crypto stuff is dangerously scammy. It's getting a lot of people into a lot of financial troubles. So those who are looking for a quick buck with it are easily targeted. And so that's why I try to avoid all of it. I do have a link. Obviously, there's somewhat of a still interest in it. I do have a link at the end of my videos for donations. And that's there just because people have asked for it. And I've only received a couple of donations, 2 or 3, I think, donations maybe in the last month or two. So it's not like a big income source for me or anything by any means. I always appreciate it. But yeah, I'm not a Bitcoiner per se or anything like that. Steve Kerr, what is your income to finance that? I assume the trip. And my answer to that is simply, I have some other videos that I've talked about this at length for quite a long time, like 20, 30-minute videos, talking about the budgeting process, my mindset, the amount of money that I needed, the budgeting that was involved with that, all those types of things. They're all in those other videos, so I will put links to those both here on screen and in the description below that you can kind of go watch those to get a better idea. And the last question I have is one that I'm apprehensive to answer, but I'm going to. And I only say I'm apprehensive because no one's going to be happy with my answer. It's that simple. And I've been asked hundreds or thousands of times at this point, am I religious? Am I a Muslim? Am I a Christian? What's your whole philosophy on religion in general? And I thought about answering this a couple of different ways. This is probably the one question I actually thought about the most before I turned this camera on today. And I guess my answer to that is I am agnostic. I am a very factually based person. I believe in data and information and factual stuff. So if you don't know, there's a couple of different terms. There's agnostic and atheist. And agnosticism is basically about knowledge. So I don't know something, therefore I don't believe in it. That makes sense. But then atheism is more about the belief side of it, where I don't believe in something, so I don't think it exists. If that makes any sense, there's a little bit of a difference there. I'm just reading some notes because I wrote a few things down here. There's a lot of overlap there as well. So I sort of see as atheism as picking a stance. So for example, you might say, I'll believe in a god or whatever, a deity, when it can be proven that one exists. And agnosticism is more of a philosophical outlook. I don't know everything, but I also know nobody else does, so I'll just live my life accordingly. And that last bit is the key, I think, to everything that I do in life. Just be a good person. Live your life accordingly to your own way of how you want to be treated. It doesn't matter if you're religious or not. It doesn't matter where you're from, your background, any of it. Just be a good person and be good to other people, and wonderful things will happen. I've said to someone in the past, they asked me, they said, well, what if there's an afterlife? I said, well, great, then there is. And when I get there, it'll be cool, because I've tried to live my life as a good person, and then I shouldn't have any issues with being able to enjoy any kind of afterlife should it exist, which I don't think it does. But if it does, cool, I'm wrong, and that's fine. But I would rather focus my time and energies on being a good person here today and going forward. And I try not to judge anyone else for their decisions. If you want to be religious, if you have a very strong religious belief, fantastic, that's great. I'm overjoyed that you have found something that you believe in so strongly, and I have no problems with that. My perspective on that is, you do you, I'll do me, and that's it. And everything is copacetic. So that's kind of my sort of long-winded answer on that, I guess. I'm not religious. I'm pretty well agnostic with a touch of atheism in there, I suppose. But for me, really, it's a fact thing. Show me the facts. And, there's no way to definitively prove that any of this stuff exists. So that's where I'm at. And that is all the questions that I have on my sheet. So my camera's still overheating, so I'm going to end this here for now. Thank you again for the 30,000 subscribers. That is a number that I could have never imagined. It really means a lot to me. It means a lot to me that people are interested in what I have to say and what I present, and that's fantastic. And I really do hope you stick around. As I said, as I'm transitioning a little bit for the short term, you're doing some recap videos and some other things like this. My next video will actually be a regular video. I have a visit to a ghost town that I went to when I was home visiting my family. So that'll be a regular video. And then after that, I'm going to get into some recaps videos, some top 10 type stuff, and those kinds of things. I've also had some really good feedback and number of viewers on a lot of the hotel reviews shorts that I've been releasing, and some of the old content that I've been re-releasing as shorts. I think some of that stuff gets kind of overlooked or lost because it was shot at a time when I only had a handful of subscribers. And the hotel reviews I really like because it's giving people an opportunity just to see the place. If they're looking for a place to stay in a town, this is the place I recommended. I believe my last video for all the Mexico places I stayed just came out, Hotel Villas Maya. So I believe that's the last one for Mexico. So from here we will continue. I have reviews going forward, obviously, of all the places I've stayed in all the other countries, and those will continue to come out as well. So thank you very much. As always, I really appreciate it. Thank you for listening to me talk endlessly here in the heat. I'm probably beet red and sweaty at this point on the camera, so I apologize for that a little bit. I'm going to go inside and get cooled off. And if you have found this video useful, please give me a like down below or a comment just to let me know that you came by and watched. I really appreciate that. I do read all my comments. I try to respond to as many of them as I can. As I mentioned quite often, I'm doing this all by myself. The videos, the editing, the replies, the social media, everything. It's all me. It's nobody else behind the scenes. So I appreciate even just a quick like or a comment. If you would like to support me further, there are a couple different ways you can do that. I have memberships set up through here on YouTube. There are 3 different tiers available, starting at the cheapest one is $3 Canadian per month. And if you want to support me just as a one-time donation, there are links both on the screen here and in the description below for PayPal and Bitcoin. And remember, life is short. Wander. And I will see you in the next video.